So I'm going to kick off this conversation and introduce our Spartan Women panel. I'm happy to introduce our moderator, Stacy Sullenberger, who will be the one who will lead the conversation for this afternoon. Stacy is an executive coach and the founder of Stride Executive Coaching, where she's a catalyst for leaders taking transformational steps to hit their strides. I love that connection. Stacy received both her bachelor's and her master's degrees from the College of Social Science, and she's a Women's Leadership Institute executive board member with the College of Social Science and a member of the Atlanta Women in Philanthropy Committee. Stacy's an avid runner who also enjoys kayaking, hiking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, all these type of activities that require patience to get where you're going and overcoming unforeseen circumstances and obstacles, something all of us in this room have probably encountered in our lifetime. Please welcome Stacy to the panel.
Thank you, Amy. You made me sound like an athlete, which I've never called myself. I appreciate it. And I honestly did not think that I could be more energized about MSU, about giving back, than I am today. This has been great. So thank you already for a great day. And thank you, Beth. I learned a lot in that last session. So thank you. I have the honor of moderating this panel, and I'd like to introduce our panel. We talked a little bit about our group, about this and, why we're doing this. And I think, it's hearing more stories, right? And each of the stories that you're going to hear are different about how they came to give of their time, their talent, and of course, their treasure. And we hope you're inspired by it. And we hope you have questions as well. We've got our questions prepared, of course. And we hope you have more questions as well, because they're fascinating, amazing women. All right, so first we have Melissa. She's given me permission to call her Mel Green, and she's the founder and the managing attorney of MDG Law Virtual, where she provides effective and practical solutions to solopreneurs. I guess I'm kind of one of those, aren't I? Yeah. And small businesses that protect her clients' businesses and helps them mitigate legal exposure. Mel was also an athlete, a real athlete. She was on the Michigan State's gymnastics team. And she received her bachelor's degree from James Madison College. She's also a member of the Chicago Women in Philanthropy. Yeah, woohoo, Chicago, where are you? Those are her people. Philanthropy Committee, and she received in 2023 the Nell Jackson Outstanding Alumna Award. Thank you. Then we have Kim Cleason. Kim is a retired senior director at Johnson & Johnson and currently serves as the vice chair of the Thomas Edison State University Foundation Board. Kim is an alum of the College of Arts and Letters, and she's a member, where are you, New York, with the New York Women in Philanthropy Committee. There we are. And then we have Bonnie. Bonnie is a philanthropist and cultural leader who is an advocate for the arts in southeastern Michigan and at Michigan State. She's an alumna of the College of Social Science and a recipient of the Philanthropist Award for the 2023 Alumni Grand Awards. Congrats. And she serves on the National Leadership Council for the College of Music and the Athletic Directors Advisory Council for MSU. She was also the past chair of the International Advisory Board for the MSU Broad Museum. Welcome, Bonnie. And then we have Paula Lupina. She is a retired project manager from the Upjohn Company, where she worked for 32 years. She's a graduate, and I think that we had asked earlier if there are any others that are not alumna of Michigan State. She's a graduate of Western Michigan University. And yes, her story, as you will hear, is actually fascinating. And she created an endowed scholarship at the Lyman Briggs College, honoring her husband, an MSU alum. Welcome, all of you. So before we get started, I would like to ask all of you to just share, where you're from and a little bit more about your connection to MSU. Let's start there, and we'll just go across.
As Stacy mentioned, my name is Melissa, but I go by Mel. I have been Mel since I've been about 10 years old. I started, born and raised in East Lansing. I am an East Lansing High School Trojan. Go Trojans. And grew up near the Mire on Lake Lansing and Coolidge Court, and I used to sneak out of my house because they had Jelly Bellies up there. I wasn't supposed to be out of the house, and so grew up here. My mother was a professor at Lansing Community College. My dad drove to Flint, where he was a professor at what they call Kettering. But I was a gymnast here, and I was a gymnast at a gymnastics club originally called Great Lakes, and then it turned into Twistars. And I had every intention of not going to school here. It was too close to home. My parents were here, all sorts of things were just not in Michigan State's favor. I wanted to go to Stanford because that's where I was going to get the best education, to get my law degree, which I was going to go to Georgetown, meet my husband. I had all the plans. And I'm currently unmarried, so none of those plans worked out. But I ended up going out on my recruiting trips at Stanford, did not enjoy it, came here on my last trip and was with a lot of the team at the time, some of the alumni. There were potentially some recruiting violations, but anyway, and I fell in love. I fell in love with James Madison and learning about the students that go there and the Rhodes Scholars and the type of education that I was going to get there. And it felt like home. And so I was like, yeah, so I guess I got to go to school here. And it was great. Once I crossed Grand River, my parents left me alone. They only tried to sneak into the dorm one time unannounced. They never did it again. My sister warned me they were coming. So, and now I just stay very active in lots of things. And I just love coming back to our campus.
Good afternoon. I'm Kim, and I grew up in Ohio. Didn't go to the Ohio State University, but I come from a Big Ten family. So my parents are Boilermakers. My father's sister and her husband were here at Michigan State. So there was a bit of a natural affinity to Big Ten. I graduated from the College of Arts and Letters, but if it were today, it would be the College of Music. So I graduated then from the School of Music. In music therapy, I came here for that major. There was one school in Ohio that offered music therapy, and my dad really wanted me to stay in state for that in-state tuition. And so I remember sitting, and I wanted to come here. I remember sitting on the sofa in Ohio, literally cutting a deal with him that I will work summers and pay X amount of money for my tuition if you let me go to Michigan State. And so that was the deal we cut. And I came up here to Michigan State and had an amazing experience here. And then that launched me into a zigzag of a career path, to use the discussion that Amy had this morning, and practiced music therapy for a while and stayed connected here. And then I got an MBA and went and worked in hospitals in administration. And then I ended up moving east. I now live in New Jersey, and I was working for Johnson & Johnson doing organization development and leadership development. And that drew upon actually my skills from music therapy here at Michigan State. So when I would tell people when I was interviewing for jobs, and they'd be like, oh, you have a music degree. Why? What are you interviewing here at Johnson & Johnson? Why? How does that fit? I was really able to draw a very clear line between the skills I learned here at the School of Music in the music therapy program to working with leaders in the corporate setting and doing organization development. So it's a zigzaggy path. I did a doctoral program in organization change and development, and I never liked the word retired. The zag was I left the corporate world right before COVID, and I've now zigzagged back into passions around music. I'm still a flute player. I take lessons all the time, and perform. I sing in 2 choruses. That's all rooted here. And I've reconnected with just doing creative arts work in not-for-profit settings. So that's what I'm doing. And, I've stayed very connected here to Michigan State, a great love of mine.
Impressive. Hi, I'm Bonnie Larson, and I just wanted to first say how very honored I am to have been asked to be here today. I love this university. My parents both went to Michigan State. My aunt and uncle went to Michigan State. Another sister went to Michigan State. So most kids grow up learning how to sing their ABCs, and I learned how to sing the fight song. In fact, I sang it for my recital once in kindergarten. So I've been a Michigan State groupie practically all my life. My parents would come. We had season tickets to the football games, and there were many Saturdays that we froze in the upper deck rooting on our Spartans. But I had a great college experience here. I love the culture here, and we were talking about it earlier, the graduate students, about the collaborative culture at Michigan State. And I'm dating myself, but when we went back during those very tumultuous times with the Vietnam War and so forth, this campus kind of stayed together. So I've had lots of experiences here, and as I got older, I found my passion in arts and culture, and I always had a passion for the athletics. So I have found those 2 areas here at the university that have been of special interest to me, and I'm happy to tell you those stories later.
Hello, my name is Paula Lupina, and I am the Western Michigan grad, but I grew up in southwestern Michigan. I was born in Detroit, grew up in southwestern Michigan, and now I live in Henderson, Nevada. So it's quite the change in the environment. My connection to MSU was basically a boyfriend who became a husband, who just had graduated and told lots of stories about his time here, also stories about his ability to come here because he had a full ride. And then I got to watch him use his education that he got here in his professional life and also in his social and entertainment. He took a lot of extra classes in things that interested him, and they continued to interest him the rest of his life. I've also made some good friends here when we came up for some events, and they're still my good friends. I'm sure you've met Mary, Carla, and Pat, and they are my friends. And I also have to say that Michigan State has quite the reach. There's a Las Vegas Alumni Club, and we've done lots of things with them, and they don't mind me tagging along. And wherever we went, there's always somebody from Michigan State. I've never really ran into anybody from Western. So, I don't know what that says, but so I am, I've been dubbed, they told me last time I'm dubbed a Spartan, so I'm good.
I just love the thread of just the passion and, of bleeding green that we all have. And I think probably this whole room shares. They did ask me to, participate on the panel as well. We hope this feels like a conversation to you. I do have to share, obviously I went here, but my connection and why I bleed green is because this is a place where I found my community, my family, literally my family. I met my husband here. We just celebrated, we will celebrate 31 years next month. Yes, thank you. And my son just graduated from here with both his undergrad and his graduate degree. So growing up in Georgia, that's a big deal that he came all the way up here. And so he's going to stay here. He's actually moving to Ann Arbor. So yes, not to go to school there. He's going to work there. Yes. So yes. So I'm excited for him, regardless of where he's moving. He's staying in Michigan, which is really fun. So continuing on, and Paula, this question's first for you. And that's, we're here today as an engaged community of Spartan women who care deeply about this university, could you share what this community, and I think you started to talk about it, what it means to you? And also, how do these connections advance the impact that we have with MSU?
Well, one of the great things I loved about here, and I came to the first symposium, was being in a room with a bunch of like-minded, empowered women who have made philanthropy an important part of their life and want to continue to give. Now, I have a definition for philanthropy that I picked up a long time ago, and it is philanthropy is the planned giving of your time and or money, which I think is very important. And when I also want to talk about the joy, a little bit about the joy. Whenever you give something, there is a little spark of joy in there. And I also think I know so much now is online. It's so click, because I really enjoyed writing those checks, go real slow and enjoy it. But, and they will cash checks still. I'm telling you, they will. So, but that's what's important. In listening to everybody's reason, it's wonderful to hear. Everybody has a different reason why they're giving and what their decision making was. And that's inspiring in itself, just hearing about that from everybody.
Great. Good. Kim, this next question's for you. Our table had a fantastic discussion about Beth's presentation about giving. And I'm curious what resonated at your table when you were going through the exercises that she asked us.
And I think I speak for everyone to thank you, Beth, for your presentation and thought-provoking questions and prompts. So a few reflections from our table. I'm not sure they knew I was kind of taking notes on this, so you guys can keep me honest. But one of the things when you asked the question about who's influenced you, I think was how you put it, in philanthropy, it was, I think, close to unanimous. We all spoke in some way about parents or family, some family members that had really influenced us in giving. Often, although this wasn't unanimous, but often initially to church. But I think that really speaks to a core value that we all learned young about giving. And I think we all acknowledge that none of us were in really wealthy households, some very modest, and the word was never philanthropy, right? It was always just giving or give your money, or also this giving of your time. So for some at our table, that was giving time when there really maybe wasn't a lot of money. But I think what struck me was that very early family influence in philanthropy. And I'll just highlight one other thing. There were a lot of themes at the table, but we got into an interesting conversation spurred by one of our table mates about when you think about philanthropy, how do you think about this? Do you give a little to a lot of places, or do you kind of winnow that down and give more to a few places? And so we had a very interesting discussion about that. Acknowledge that there's really no right answer, right? It's what you figure out for yourself. But I think that is a sort of an interesting thing to think about when you think about your own philanthropy. Where do I spread myself? Do I want to go deep or do I want to go broad? And how does that play out for you? And of course, there is no right answer, but it's figuring out what's best for you. So those are the two things that I thought were really interesting that came out at our table.
Great, thank you. Did anybody else want to share what came up at your table?
Well,
I didn't prepare them for this question, so I just
didn't. That's throwing curveballs. I think I will just, I won't necessarily speak about what happened at the table, but I will say that I feel like we need more time. I feel like we were all just having such great conversations and such amazing stories that came out about each one of those questions that we would be like, all right, you got 30 seconds. You're like, damn, I didn't finish. I got, and so we wanted to continue the conversation. And so I know for me, as I was like looking through the agenda, I'm like, okay, well, I know I heard Beth last year and it was my first time and I was so excited. I'm like, well, what's she going to do this year? Is it going to kind of be similar? Is it going to be like, am I going to want to hear this again? And now I'm like, oh, she can do this every year. She can come all the time and have these thought-provoking conversations, because I felt like it was so different than last year. So all I can say is just this one, bring her back all the time. She's incredible. So.
Well, and I think you and Kim, I'm sorry, Bonnie. Go ahead. No, I was just
Well,
going Go ahead.
I was just going to add, I wasn't sitting at a table, but I've always felt that human beings are basically kind, but philanthropy is something that needs to be taught. You need role models, and I had role models in my life that truly made a difference in understanding the impact of philanthropy. So rather than comment about the tables, I would just say to Beth and this program that I think it's really important for women, certainly, but for everybody to really understand what philanthropy is and how it applies to you. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you all have brought up, the question of what is philanthropy. And I know at our table, we talked a little bit about that it's not just writing a check, right? It can be so much more than that. And I can speak for myself. I did not grow up in a wealthy family. And I associated philanthropy with naming a building, right? Those are for wealthy people that have the means to give. And I have learned in my journey, and I was really influenced by my mother-in-law initially, and where's Martha Brink, who knew my mother-in-law? She's still here. Oh, she, she, gave a lot of her time and her talents. And that's where I learned about philanthropy. And it doesn't have to be a check. It can be time. And that has been my journey in giving to MSU, is first with time and then with talent. And now, having the means, we're starting to give more financially. And so the next question then is for Bonnie. Yeah, as we reflect on about our collective impact, let's talk about our individual giving. And if you could just share, we just talked about, it can happen on many different levels, right? But how did you take your first step at giving back to MSU? And can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. When I got to a certain point in my life and I really thought I wanted to give back something to the university, but I didn't even know where to start. And so what I decided to do, because my parents were both graduates of the business school, and my father was president of the Alumni Association. They were very engaged with the university. My mom is 97 now, and she has green patent leather ballet flats that she wears to watch every football and basketball game. So she's still a big fan at Michigan State. So I thought, well, maybe the best place to start would be to endow a scholarship at the College of Business, School of Business, and in their name to honor them. And they were quite thrilled with that, and I was too, because it was something that they knew I appreciated about them. But writing the check was terrific, but I didn't feel the connection. I didn't feel a belonging. So, as life does, I was presented with an opportunity. When Michigan State came down to Naples, Florida, they come down every year for Winter University. And the speaker that year was Michael Rush, who was the founding director at the Edith and Eli Broad College of Art, Broad Museum of Art here. And Michael and I sat next to each other at dinner. There was some development person who understood my connection with the arts and put me right next to Michael. And he kind of had me at hello. And so I got involved with the Broad Museum and eventually ended up as chair of the International Advisory Board. And there was a sense of belonging. There was a connection. that was really exciting to me. And I felt kind of like the TV series Cheers, where, you know, everybody knows your name, you're comfortable there, you belong there. So that's what really got me interested in being a part of these different families in the university, where I had my interests and I could marry them with what was going on at the school. So
I love that. Yeah. And I'm hearing some themes that Beth talked about, right? That's how women in general, maybe it's the connection. It's having maybe time to process what we want, how we want to give, and maybe building up to that before they ask. Yeah, great. Bonnie, back to you. Also, yeah, you were a recipient of the 2023 Philanthropist Award, and you did a video interview during which I'm told you said, you ready? If you find something that you're passionate about, it's a joy to be able to give to that organization or to that program to see that you're making a difference somewhere. Could you talk about the joy of giving and the passion that inspired you in your own giving?
You know, giving, the gift is in the giving. It's what you really, that's the joy of giving. And so I can give you a couple of examples of what has been meaningful for me, both inside and outside the university. But my mother's family built pianos. They were the Grinnell brothers in Detroit, if anybody's from Detroit. And they, at one point, manufactured more pianos than any other company in the United States. So I always felt that connection with them. And here we go with the because of that, and because of my love for music, I became involved with the Detroit Symphony, and I was on the board of the symphony. And it turned out that the symphony needed a new concert grand piano. And I can't tell you how exciting it was for me to raise my hand and say, that's my legacy. I want to do that for my city. And it made a huge difference, because every time there's a concert and someone is playing that piano, I just think about my family and their investment in Detroit and my little piece of an investment in Detroit. So that's one joy I've had in giving. But I think the other thing that I wanted to tell you about Detroit, because art and music to me are kind of the heart and soul of a city. And when my great niece was in the Michigan State Marching Band, and another opportunity surfaced where I met the Dean of the College of Music, Jim Forger. And Jim and I had a wonderful, we got to know each other, and he got to know me and presented me with something that I thought was just a wonderful idea. And that was endowing scholarship money for the Michigan State Community Music School in Detroit. So I could marry my passion for Detroit, my passion for music, my passion for Michigan State, all rolled up into one. And that has been also very gratifying too. So there are hopefully those opportunities that present themselves in your life where you think, oh, that's a way I can be connected. That's someplace I feel like I can belong. And those have been important to me.
Wow. I'm hearing also like a legacy. I mean, that piano will be there for hopefully, many, many years to come. Yeah. Wonderful. Kim, this next question's for you. Our giving can be very diverse. Some of us give to colleges that we graduated from. Others give to programs across the university based on their passions and interests. And I know you have a very unique passion in how you give. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I think when many people, particularly universities, you start thinking about giving and your head naturally goes to the school or the college from which you graduated. And that can be wonderful. But it may or may not fulfill all the answers to the questions that Beth was posing to us. So I began right after graduation of writing a check every year, and it went to the School of Music, probably $25 and then as I was earning more money, I made it 50 and 100. So that was a way to begin that giving back. And about 12 years ago, there was a very unique opportunity that presented itself that took me out of the School of Music. An anonymous donor offered matching funds. They called it the Spartan Scholarship Challenge. I see some nods, so maybe some of you participated in that. The person, at that time, a scholarship fund was $30,000 to endow it, way beyond my reach at that point in time. But my dear friend from Michigan State, who has passed away 2 years ago from brain cancer, she and I talked about this, and we both worked for matching gift companies, so I plug that too. And we did the math, and we said, well, there's 10,000 from the anonymous donor. That leaves us with 20. I got 2 for 1 from Johnson & Johnson. She got 1 for 1 from Ingersoll Rand. You divide 20,000 by 5, and you get $4,000 that each one of us had to come up with to meet the $20,000. So we were able to do a scholarship at a point in our lives when we wouldn't have been able to do that. The divergence became, she went to the School of Psychology. Neither one of us, we were both in organizations that were really struggling with attracting STEM students out of university into jobs. And so we decided to put that scholarship into STEM. And so that was nothing either one of us had been involved in, but it became an interest of ours because we were in professional arenas where that was incredibly important. So I think your professional or your other interests can come to play. We've continued, and I've continued to add to that fund. It's now fully funded, and so that's wonderful. In the meantime, then I realized along the way how actually greatly privileged I was. My parents went to college. My aunts and uncles went to college. A couple of my grandparents went to college. And I never knew how unusual that was until I began hearing other stories. And that got me very interested through in first-generation challenges. So I had been doing some development work and not-for-profit work in Trenton, New Jersey, and listening to stories of first generation. And that got me talking to development people here, which then led me to doing some early contributions in the first generation space. So that pulled me in that direction. And now all the way back, the School of Music, College of Music, is doing some things that I deeply believe in around entrepreneurship and helping artists really think about how to put together their career. And so that brings me all the way back to the School of Music. So the development is a journey. Your contributions are a journey, and it can be in so many places in the university where you have passion. And I'll end this with just a real plug for the development staff at Michigan State. They're amazing people. If you're not connected to a development person, talk to Kim Tobin or any of them today, and they will get you to the right person. And don't think that you're going to sit down and they're going to ask you for a check. They're not. They're going to talk to you about all the questions Beth asked. What are your interests? What kind of impact do you want to make? And together, they will help you find places that are really meaningful for you. And I'm very grateful to the development folks that I've worked with, that they've helped me find those passions here at Michigan State that I didn't know were possible a few years ago.
Yeah, Kim, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think, first of all, I think your story and how it evolved and what it came to be, first of all, it sounds very serendipitous that it was meant to be. But what I love is that it was a conversation around giving and really pulling out what you didn't maybe even know what you were passionate about. And I know when we were talking, our family was talking with the development staff, so another plug for them, Amy asked us all these questions that were it was very reminiscent that with what Beth was going over. It was because we didn't know how we wanted to give. We just knew that we wanted to contribute. And those questions really led us down a path that really solidified, yes, this is it. And for us, it wasn't about the visibility. It was about the impact. It was about leaving a legacy. And that was really important to us. And somehow we found a way and we got creative. And I think your story talks about the creativity that you can have with it as well. So again, it doesn't have to be a certain way. So another plug to the development staff. Thank you very much.
If I could just add that it then doesn't end there. So my conversations began with Deanna Gast and Rachel Carl. They connected me with others in the school. And then the work that I did with Madison, I don't know if she's still here, but Dugan, there she is in the back, around a first generation investment. And then yesterday I had a chance to sit down and hear what has happened. And so you'll hear the impact. And I heard what had been done with the money. And oh, by the way, there was some left over. And what did I want them to do with what was left over? And I was like, really? There's some left over? Wow. So we're actually going to use the leftover money for retention grants. So students, first generation, who are short, I don't know, $800 because they can't pay part of it, a tuition or part of a fee. And if they don't pay that, they can't come back. So that's very compelling to me. So, it's an ongoing conversation. You'll hear your impact, and having a chance to continue to have input into how that money gets used is amazing.
I'll just add too that with working with the development staff, at first for me, it was how can you contribute? I talked about it earlier about the time. And so they were inviting me back to do some programming. And so it was sharing of my time, not just money. The conversation of money didn't even come up. It was, how do you want to give? And I had come to a place in my life where, and we all come to this, right? Where it's like, wow, we know stuff. Wow, I have some expertise that I didn't know I had, and I want to share it. And I want to share it with what I care about. And for me, it was leadership and student development. And so that's where I started, giving my time and my energy. And it didn't have to be money. Of course, it ended up being some of that. So that's good too. Mel, we have a question for you and somewhat related. So Mel started a nonprofit, her own nonprofit, MGAM Scholarship Foundation, in 2020. You also started your law firm in 2022, MDG Law Virtual, and you became a member of the Women in Philanthropy Committee in 2023. You're really getting involved here. So when you started your giving journey, tell us about what your initial goals were and what excites you about giving.
Yeah, so we, this came up at the table as kind of the discussion around, role models and what motivated you. And so when I was young, as you were talking about, Kim, the putting my dollar in the tithe, as I went around at church and all of that. And then watching my dad, who is the patriarch of the family, well, I guess I didn't watch him at this time, but hearing the stories as he lost his mother very young and had many siblings. And so my mother and him were married at that time. And so for them to they became Santa Claus and made sure all the kids had the gifts and made sure that they got, their educations. And so that was what Daddy would do, and Mom would do the same. And so it was something that I had seen my entire life, was giving and being able to help others. So for me, I think more so when I started my career. And each one of at my law firm, there were particular things that I was focused on. I worked in Cincinnati, and there were different hospitals that my law firm was associated with. There was United Way. And so there were all of these things that from a large organization where I was able to give money. And again, it came down to here's my $50, but another thing that I would do is I would give my time in coaching gymnastics, because it's actually what I love to do more than anything. I am good at my job, but I really love gymnastics. Really love coaching gymnastics. And so I was a young lawyer. I couldn't be I can coach on Thursdays and Fridays, and I'm sure I can leave the office. It shouldn't be a problem. So I would just come in when I could, and I never asked for money because that didn't occur to me. This is how I'm giving back to what I love, to the sport that has given to me. And then as I kind of moved on in my career, it became, okay, I want to talk to law students. I worked for a program in Cincinnati called Swell. And this was a program that brought together people that were interested in going into law school and matched them with lawyers. And it's become a full circle thing, because when I decided to start my law firm, the person I was working with was designing my website was like, yeah, you should take a look at this Contract Casey. She's got a really great website. And I'm like looking at her picture and I'm like, that was one of my mentees in Cincinnati. And so Casey and I got on a call and we were sharing Swell stories. She was one of the mentees in the program when I was a mentor. And now she's mentoring me in my entrepreneurship journey. And so, you know, my journey has evolved in so many different ways. Now, as the executive director of my nonprofit, it's about how can I make the impact on these 2 young women every year. So it's a scholarship, and I give it to 2 young Black women every year, and I started at $1,000 each, and every year it's gone up by $250, with the goal being my 5th year at $2,000. So I'm currently in the application phase. We're reviewing applications for who's going to be this year's scholarship recipients. But I remember thinking, is $1,000 enough? And wondering, like, what is the impact that this is really going to have? And realizing that I don't have to have this huge impact. And so when, I think it was Ursula, I couldn't remember who it was, talked about her laptop dying. And I thought, see, that's where this $1,000 comes, because I wanted it to be about the non-tuition expenses that these students have, their dorm supplies, their dining hall expenses, the laptops that they need. And so hearing from them now, and I every year I kind of ask, like, how did you use it? And I've some of them have used it toward tuition, but a lot of them were like, it helped me get my dorm supplies, or I bought a MacBook and things along those lines. And I'm like, okay, I am having an impact. I didn't have to have a scholarship that was $30,000 and recurring. And I'd love to be able to do that if those lotto numbers ever come in. I mean, I'm all over it. But until then, I will just have to do what I'm doing.
I love how you asked about the impact, and you know, that helped inform what you did with your treasure, which is, I think, important for all of us to do, especially, you know, we want to know if it's having an impact. So,
yeah. And it was because I felt to myself, like, I can fund $2,000. So when this started, it was post George Floyd. And I was sitting outside of my apartment in Chicago, and all of a sudden I heard just footsteps moving. And I look around the corner and just Chicago PD in riot gear, just walking down my street, getting ready to turn down going towards Michigan Avenue, because I live near Navy Pier. And I'm standing on the corner just like, what is going on in my life? Like, what is this? And I just started bawling. And, you know, at that time we're in COVID. And so I wanted to hug my sister. Like, it was just one of those things where I'm like, this is hurting my heart and I don't know what to do with this. And so protests were going on and people were doing certain things. And I realized that's not my lane. I'm not walking in marches. That's not me. So I'm like, but here's what's not going to happen is I'm not going to sit here and be upset and then not think of what I can do. And so I'm sitting there one day, maybe the next day, and I'm like, all right, this is still bothering me. What's going to be my thing? And I'm like, you know, I always wanted a scholarship in my parents' names, but they told me no years ago when I asked them about this. And I'm like, but they were both educators. Education is important to me. So is young people. Let's do that. And I know that I spend money that is unnecessary on a regular basis. And so perhaps perhaps I can move some of those funds to something that will be helpful to young Black women, which is what I am a Black woman. And so I wanted to impact people that looked like me. And so that's what I've done. So
I love how it's almost similar to Kim's story too, about like realizing what we have and what we can also then give. And I love how your story also brings that as much as you give, it does come back in terms of like the fulfillment and joy that you get from it. Great.
And it doesn't, yeah, I think your story and mine, it doesn't have to be that I have enough money to build a building. And I think sometimes when we hear the word philanthropy, it feels big and like it's those wealthy people. You know, it can be $4,000 when you're in a younger career spot that can do good things. It can be a couple $1,000s that makes a difference to a young Black woman. So I think thinking about it that way, you can really have an impact. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right. Paula, this next question's for you. You attended the Women in Philanthropy Symposium in 2022. And this was at the beginning of the stage of setting up your endowed scholarship for Lyman Briggs. In fact, it was, the scholarship was just given this past fall, right? Yeah. So you remarked that returning this third time it feels like coming home, which I find remarkable because you're not an alumni, and your husband brought you into the fold, and we have welcomed you, and I love that so much. Can you speak a little bit about why it feels like coming home to you?
Well, when I was in the process of setting up the scholarship, and I have to agree with her, the development people are wonderful. Sorry. But they asked me to come, if I wanted to come to this conference, and I thought, well, sure, why not? Let's get out there and get going. But I was concerned because I was not an alumni. I was like, am I going to be looked at as like an interloper? And that never happened. I mean, I was welcomed. It doesn't matter as long as you have MSU in your heart and you're willing to do things for them, you're welcomed. And so that felt good, and it felt good coming back, and also because it's Michigan, so in a way it is home. But it was a great thing to work through, like with the development people on. They are so great at asking you what you want and what you're giving you time to think about it. And I know when it was first broached, I said, let me think about it. And then 3 days later, I called and said, sure, let's do it. That was with Jill. And we worked on that. And see, my husband was going to go to Western Michigan University and live at home because he was, his father was out of the picture early, so he was raised by a single mother. And then on high school graduation, he had a phone call that there was a company in Kalamazoo that picked one senior. Well, they worked through the counselors from each high school and gave them a full ride, all tuition, all books, and then a job during the summer to pay for everything else. And when I first met him, like I said, he told me stories, but he also said, and he was going on and on about this, and he said, someday I hope I can help somebody do the very same thing. So in working with them developing the scholarship, I asked some questions, and this is how we set it up. At a certain household income, there is a lot of availability of grants and scholarships for lower income or whatever this income level is. So I wanted to aim this scholarship at the household income that just missed that. And so I've been telling people, I call them my gap kids. You know, that's who they're going to be. And it was important to me that it's for incoming freshmen, and they do not have to reapply. As long as they're a student in good standing, it will follow them for 4 years. And I also was interested in impact. So what I did in my community is people around me, their grandkids were going to school, and I'd say, what if they got $1,000? And they say, oh, that'd be nice and everything. what if they get 5,000? They go, whoa, that'd be awesome. And I'm like, okay, that's where I want to be. I want to be in the whoa, that's awesome category. So, and thankfully, I did not have to choose because Kendra, who's the dean at Lyman Briggs, and Liz had a Zoom call with me, and they said, well, it was open for 2 weeks, and they got 116 assays, which shows there's a lot of need out there. And they chose this young man, and so he's a senior. You know what the end of school is, senior parties, graduation, all this kind of stuff. Well, in the beginning of July, I received a very lovely letter from him talking about, he gave a little bit of his backstory of why he was in need, and he recognized the fact that this was in honor of my husband, and he was the first recipient. So that was very nice. And the award started for the fall 2023 semester, which my husband would have turned 70 in August. So that was a nice way to commemorate him. And then tomorrow I get to meet him. So that's a real thing. And the one thing I did say, when I was talking, I was on the Zoom call with Liz and Jill, and the picture wasn't working, which I was very disappointed in because I had put on all of my husband's Spartan stuff and had it in the back. So I took a picture and sent it to them later anyway. But during that phone call is when I made the commitment to, yes, I'm going to do this. And I was overcome with such a sense of joy. And I remember saying that, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Oh, my goodness. Because it was just, I've given money all the time, and I feel those little sparks. But, man, that big spark is really good, you guys. It's really good. Really good. So.
Oh, my gosh, that's so special. And you had not met him yet?
No, tomorrow, 11 o'clock, Foster's Coffee. Come and watch.
Is it just you two?
Christina, who's the new development person at Lyman Briggs, will be there to point us out to each other. No, she'll be there. And I love it that I can't shake Liz, which is awesome. and I've met several other new people, I guess, on my team. I don't know, but whatever. It's but the development people are wonderful. They want to talk to you. They're friendly. They don't ask for money right up the bat. When Jill told me, I spent some time with her a month or so ago, and she said, the one thing I remember most about Ted, when I called him, he was always so hi and friendly. She goes, because sometimes when I call people, they act like, what do you want? But they're not like, I don't find them to be that way at all.
No, I totally agree. Oh, I had not heard that story. That's so sweet. And I want to hear how it goes after you meet him. You're going to exchange phone numbers and stay in contact, I hope.
It's awesome. I don't really want, when they said, do you want to meet him? And I said, is school still in session? And they said, no. And I go, well, I don't know what his commitments are for the summer. I don't want to pull him away from something important. They said, well, we'll just ask him. And I've been told he was very excited to come and meet me. And so I'm very excited to meet him. And it would be nice to keep contact a little bit. And I don't know. I don't know what to expect today.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what I get.
Yeah, you made an impact. Yeah, fantastic. All right, so this next question, they kind of asked me to answer, but I would like to invite, if you would like to answer it as well. And of course, I've prepared my response, but wow, today we have heard about so many exciting, and that thing on the table was really cool about all the things we can be proud of MSU and fun facts. And I don't know about you, but just hearing Amy Guskowitz talk was just so awesome to hear about her experience thus far. So the question was, what excites you about the future of MSU? And for me, first of all, my son, as I just shared, graduated just a couple weeks ago with his master's, and I heard President Guskowitz speak at that, and I was excited because I think he represented leadership, and he just really seemed very down to earth, and I think I experienced that with Amy this morning. And I'm excited for leadership, which I know it goes without saying, MSU has had a few black eyes over the past couple of years, and it's nice to have some things that we're very, very proud of. And I think that Piro, right? Yes. We need to start getting loud, Spartans, about all of our accomplishments and all of the things that we have to be excited and proud of. And, I'll share real quick, just this quick story about my son. He graduated with his master's in structural engineering, and his research was on concrete, of all things. And he would, send me, us videos of his concrete that he's working on and how excited he is. So everybody talks about turf. If I can pull it up, I'll read it to you. But no, I'm serious. And not only concrete, but his professor is an expert in this, like nationally renowned. And like, he's an expert. Like, he went and studied after 9/11 when all of those buildings came down. He went and he studied all of that. And so I asked him, I said, can I share the really cool thing about your concrete? I'm serious, people. This is really cool. And I said, can you tell me about it? And he said, sure. And I said, can I share it? Is it a secret? And he said, no, you can share it. So he said, we're developing bendable concrete. Bendable concrete, but instead of breaking with one big crack, I'm reading his text, it breaks with dozens, hundreds of tiny cracks that are too small for water to permeate. Who's an engineer here? Isn't that cool? So that protects the rebar. Rebar is those, the metal bar that goes through from corrosion due to water, and also makes it so it's not an instantaneous event of failure. It gradually bends, and we can see it before it's too late. Isn't that cool? MSU, so I think there are a lot of things that we do at MSU that we don't, and we're humble, right? We talked about that earlier, and I don't know about you, but I'm inspired to start bragging a little about my university because, there are a lot of things that we need to promote that we do here. And anyway, did anybody else want to share anything else? What are you excited about?
Well, concrete now.
Bendable
concrete. When we talk about the future of Michigan State, but I like to talk about the now of Michigan State. When I think about philanthropy in an organization or in a program, I think about what's the mission, what's the leadership, and what's the culture, and do those values align with mine? And so when I think of Michigan State, the mission, the leadership, and the culture all align so well, and we have so much to be proud of. And President Guskiewicz, I think I've been so impressed with him, and he's so relatable and open, and he listens and he hears, from what I understand. And I think our future is very bright with his leadership and all of these wonderful research projects that we're in, including concrete, which is fantastic, but the isotope and the partnership in Detroit with Henry Ford Hospital and our medical school is going to make such a huge difference in Detroit. It's very, very exciting. So I think we've got a great future to look forward to.
Great.
So this may come as a surprise, but I'm super excited about Michigan State gymnastics. There has been a resurgence in alumni support for the program over the last few years. And this year, Michigan State University hosted Big Tens. Myself and 4 other of my teammates decided we were going to get together and bring the alumni in. And so there were at least 90 alumni in the stands. We created T-shirts. So my teammate, Heather, when I say teammate, I speak of anyone that ever did gymnastics at my club or Michigan State, because that's how I view them. And so, but she and I did club, and she is a Michigan State gymnast. We call each other Forever Family because that's just how we grew up, and our coaches are family to us. So we created the idea of Forever Teammates. And I had my niece, she's not really my niece, but Lexi, who just graduated with her master's, create a logo, and then a friend of mine create 2 logos. So there are, in my mind, I was like, well, we've got the Spartan head, we've got the S, and we've got Gruff Sparty. So for gymnastics, we're going to have 3 different logos for the alumni. So whenever we want to do something. And so we created T-shirts. We created a video. It was Team 50 years. We had so many people, and leaving it, they were all like, well, when are we going to do this again? And what is the energy around this? And the team was super supportive of it. To have them come in to the event that we were having as a welcome reception in the Shadows Room in March and see all of these alumni that were here for them, to hear us screaming in Jennison Fieldhouse, and then the roar when we won was death. It was so loud. And so I am very excited about the program, but I'm also excited about the fact that they may build a facility on this campus devoted to women's sports. There has not been a building on this campus for the women. I don't want to say this out of turn, but maybe ever. And so I do know that there has been discussions. It was supposed to go to the board last year and had to be tabled. And so I'm looking forward to that, as well as the investment in women's athletics.
So I would say 2 things on being excited. I think one is the excitement in this room, and by extension, the people that I know that are out there that aren't here today, that are involved in women in philanthropy. Listening to your all stories and the stories of my fellow panelists, it's so inspiring on the difference that we can make to this wonderful institution. So that's one. And the other, and I agree on, getting a little more bold on promoting ourselves. I mean, wow, those students this morning, and that's just 3 out of, I don't know, what is it, 45,000, something like that. That's just 3 amazing students that I think give me great excitement for the future. And to hear them say, this is the place to be. I had other choices, and I said no to those choices. I went there, but they didn't hold a candle. The collaboration between departments, faculty, and students that's the model that we need to be following. And lastly, someone in the group this morning talked about the global reach of alumni and what alumni are doing all over the world. And I think we need to remember that and keep our eye to that and be really proud of that, because we're making a difference everywhere in the world.
Real quick follow-up on that, because somebody did mention, like, anywhere you go, I think it was Sandra, anywhere you go, there is a Spartan alum. And so my sister celebrated her 50th birthday, and we went to Africa. And we are walking up the stairs to the hotel in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm talking to my sister, and then I look over and I see a guy in a shirt, and I'm like, I think that's a Spartan head on his shirt. And so I kept looking back, and he's probably thinking, who is this crazy woman? Why is she staring at me? So I finally went over, and I'm like, are you a Spartan? And he was like, yes. And so we just started talking and sharing stories, and we exchanged information. We took our pictures together, and it was just the most random place in the world. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya, and somebody is wearing a Michigan State Spartan shirt. So we really are everywhere.
Fantastic. Yeah. Can't go anywhere, but I love it when I hear Go Green, except I still say Go Green, but no, I mean Go White. I got it down now, but yeah. All right, I think we've got one more question for all of us, and that is, if you had the opportunity to inspire a culture of giving for future generations, what advice would you give? And then
Well, I'll start with that. I think that it's important to, I go back to that planned giving of time and money, because volunteering for an event that raises money is very important. So people shouldn't discount their time. That is important. Also, that the reason why I say planned is maybe you don't have a pinpoint, but if you know an area that you're interested in, because I don't know about you, but I'm inundated with requests for donations all the time. So I want to concentrate on the core things that I think are important. And if I fund those and I have some money extra, I will look at other things. But also that there's no such thing as a small donation, because those little donations that you give, you're building a habit of philanthropy. You're building it gradually, and as you become more successful, your donations can grow. And that's what I think is important. You can start young, and you can start you don't need to sacrifice, but you do need to just build a habit. Just make it a habit.
So, Paul, I love that. And I think we can inspire our nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, friends, the younger people to start. Write the $25 check. And then think about, I loved what you said too, Mel, about I spend money all the time on stuff, don't I? Really? So, but that's the planful part of it is think about, it's not even a big sacrifice really for most of us. If we just put some money over here, maybe we don't go to Starbucks 7 days a week, we go 5. Okay. But as an example, but just getting in the habit, having it be planful, and it's not, at that level, it's probably not that hard. So doing that and getting in the habit.
Sometimes you can come up with some creative ways, and I totally agree that volunteers are so important, and I think I'm actually a professional volunteer at this point in my life, something that I've always done that also leads to philanthropy, because then you find your passion and what you really want to focus on. But I think being that role model is so important, and that's part of learning philanthropy and teaching philanthropy. And I have 9 grandchildren, and Christmas for me is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to break out in a rash. I've got to find these gifts for these kids. And so a couple years ago, I decided I don't like to give money necessarily, but I gave them money and I said, this is how I would like you to spend it. Part of it is a gift for you, and you can spend it on what you like. Part of it is a gift for you to buy something for your family that you would like to give to them. And part of it is a gift for you to make a difference in something that you're involved in. So there was a little bit of a teaching of philanthropy as well as the giving and gifting part of it. So I think there are creative ways of coming up to make a difference in philanthropy, whether it starts with your grandchildren or whether it goes, a lot higher than that.
I would say do what you're passionate about, because I know that when I started my career, I did what was expected of me. And I gave to organizations that have great missions, but there are other organizations that I align better with. Now my giving is connected to a person that I love that might have passed away, or an organization that is, again, connected with somebody that I have an affiliation with. And these are the things that I am super passionate about. Because when you do that, you have the connection. I think we talked about the way that women give. And so that would definitely probably be for me, what I would say is put your money where you love, what makes you passionate, what lights you on fire. That's where your money should go, because you're going to continue to have a connection with them. If you're giving your money to something and you're like, all right, well, my mom told me to give this $10 over here, and it doesn't really mean anything. You're not doing anything to build your philanthropy, and you're not going to be attached to the organization, which is huge. The continued giving to an organization is hugely important. And then kind of, I would say, Paula, you talking about kind of the smaller donations, like starting a $5 per year, I'm going to, $5 a month, a quarter, whatever it is, just get your philanthropy started early and understand it doesn't have to be a big swing. TJ Duckett's organization talks about rainmaking, and he just says every teardrop creates the flood. And so that's what I would say.
Great. I think also well said. The only thing that I would add is I think, back to it can be time and talent as well. And my niece, who's a fifth grader, which in Georgia, that means she's going to middle school next year. And she was telling me how she's mentoring, the younger kids, like the first graders and everything. And I just was like, I said, see, at any age, you can give back because you know stuff. She knows stuff in fifth grade that she wants to tell the first grader about their experience. And so I think, starting early, and when, we don't just arrive and knowing stuff, we know stuff throughout our journey, and to reach back, that's, I think, creating a culture as well, is no matter where you are, you can reach back and share what you know.
It's a muscle that you exercise. Yeah. It's just a muscle you exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Me?
Pause. We have probably one moment for a question if anyone wants to ask all of the panelists. We'll give a moment to any questions.
Thank you so much for your generosity and also for your wisdom and insights here on this panel. I was writing down a number of the words you were sharing as you talked about your passion and excitement for giving. And I wonder, as folks who work in advancement, what advice do you have for us? How can we continue to engage you and make the right connections?
Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you guys, you do an amazing job of listening to me, listening to what motivates me, making the connections, following up, letting me know how money is being spent, and really inspiring me and helping me think in different ways about what I can do. And I mean, you've done that in the last. Liz and I just met like a few months ago in New York, and we found some great connection points. So I would say just keep doing what you're doing.
And I think reaching out is important, and you do that very well. Anne-Marie Lindley back there, as I had mentioned before, I'm involved with the College of Music, and she's always sending me things about the College of Music, what's going on, keeps me informed. But this development whole group does that, and you do it well. But what I'm saying is, I think that's really important to just keep that relationship, because it's wonderful for us to feel that connection.
And I'm wondering, do the students, they're going to be future people giving money, and are they aware of that we're all just regular people, just like them, that eventually, we're here. The development office is here to help you when you're ready to start repaying from some of your experiences here on campus at MSU. So they're your little seeds. You gotta add a little water and sunshine to before they grow up to be philanthropists.
Just a quick add to that. I think that two things I would say: more use of the messaging of the word investing versus giving or donating or anything along those lines. More use of the words invest would be a huge one. And then the second one is potentially more messaging around, it's not necessarily your money. We want your time. here are the opportunities where you can give back. Here's a community service event. Do you want to be somebody that reviews scholarships? Do you want to come on campus and be on a panel for career day? I think those would probably be the two things that I would say.
Thank you so much. Can I get another round of applause for this panel? So I have a few closing remarks. Again, thank you. You guys can. Again, thank you for everyone who participated in our program this today. It was very inspiring about the conversations that we were both having from our panelists, our speakers, as well as just the conversations we were having around our tables today. So as we close out this final session, I hope you had opportunity to start to plant some seeds, to think about things that motivate you and inspire you about Michigan State, as well as the things that you have invested here at the university. As Spartan women, we make a positive impact, investing in the people and the transformational work of the university. And we do this together through sharing the ways we as women can connect our voices, highlight other women, the university, and our support to MSU. Again, thank you for being part of this culture of giving. And as we return home, remember the heartbeat of the campus is the pulse, life ever-changing promise that the university holds now and forever as part of Michigan State University. I do have a few housekeeping things to share with you. So we do have some snacks in the back, so you can grab and go. For those who are planning to go see some of the facilities on campus, the shuttles will start roughly around 3:45. You will have some free time before dinner at Cole's house between 6 to 8 p.m., where President Guskowicz will make a few words, and Amy will also be there. So we hope to see you there this evening. Shuttles to the Graduate Hotel and to Cole's house will start roughly around 5:45. It is a beautiful day, so if you feel inspired that you do want to walk to Cole's house, you can do that. And then tomorrow at MSU FCU, it is literally kitty corner to the Graduate Hotel. So there will be no shuttle services there. That will start at 9 a.m. So we look forward to having you there. And then lastly, you have met some of my team members. Kim has led our team. If you feel inspired about wanting to talk about our program, the Women in Philanthropy program, as well as just your journey with Michigan State, we would love to have you. So please seek us out. The other thing that you'll see is you've seen some of our women who have had gold badges. They are part of our Women in Philanthropy committee here, both in Michigan as well as around the region. And they can be inspiration and help guide those conversations for you too. Finally, I'd like to share a short video with all of you featuring our beautiful campus and some of the extraordinary things that happen every day.